Alrighty, well, greetings everyone and welcome. I am absolutely excited to welcome Pascal Murasira to this ELISA Confab. Our theme today is generate new ideas, innovate. So I hope that you are equally thrilled and ready to engage. Before I introduce this innovator, a few housekeeping logistics. One, after Pascal shares his insights, we will move into 10 minutes of Q&A, where you have the opportunity to interact with Pascal. Please place your questions in the chat and we will try to respond to as many as time permits. We will then join breakout rooms for 15 minutes to discuss inspiring points from the session and network to learn about each other. Lastly, we will return to the main session to close out this confab. Now, it is my honor to introduce Pascal, an innovator who has experiences in agriculture, healthcare, the tech ecosystem, and entrepreneurship promotion, working in the UK, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Rwanda. He is shaking up the entrepreneurial space in East Africa in his role as Managing Director of Norrsken Foundation. They provide world-class infrastructure, access to capital, and networking opportunities to local startups. Under Pascal's leadership, Norrsken has worked tirelessly to recently open the region's largest hub for entrepreneurs in Kigali, Rwanda. The vision is to house a mix of startups, incubators, venture capitalists, accelerators, and corporates. This opens a world of opportunities for the entrepreneurship community and, of course, social and economic development, tackling issues such as poverty and food insecurity. Pascal, we are excited to learn more, so over to you to share your journey and your drive and enthusiasm for entrepreneurship in Africa.
So I started working for NGOs that were supporting farmers in the rural areas, but at some point I really came to a reflection that maybe this is not the best way to have impact, particularly because my role involves telling farmers how they can move from traditional farming to more commercial farming. But when I was saying that, I always felt like I'm not the right person to say this because I've never run a business myself. I've never taken the risk, the kind of risk that I'm asking these farmers to take. So perhaps I should jump into entrepreneurship myself and actually see by myself whether what I'm telling people to do makes sense. And it was around 2013 that I decided to start potato processing. So we're making potato chips, same way like Lay's does. And it was a very exciting journey and a lot of lessons. And also got, again, to prove myself that it's not easy to be an entrepreneur, but the rewards can be really exciting as well. So the business is still ongoing. It's the largest producer of potato chips in Rwanda. And also these chips are sold in Uganda and the Eastern Congo. So when we were running that factory, we got support from the USAID, which brought in additional manufacturing capacity, but also we got software to help manage farmers. And that software really opened a lot of eyes, opened my eyes on a lot of opportunities that are there in the tech sector, especially when it comes to solving a lot of problems like SMEs face in Africa, such as an SME such as the one I was running. Being an entrepreneur, I said, like, this is an opportunity, this is the future, this is where I need to be. And when an opportunity came from a British healthcare company, digital healthcare company, to find someone to help them set up the business in Rwanda, I jumped on the opportunity, and I was their commercial director, helping with the go-to-market strategy, but also developing the partnerships with people in the urban areas, doctors, insurance companies. That was our market for potato chips anyway. And but also connecting them to the channels that will help them reach the people in rural areas who are the people that critical needs care, and they cannot access it because they are far from the nearest doctors. But in this case, they could use mobile phones to be able to talk to a doctor who's based in the city and get their prescriptions over the same mobile phone. So like that was really a very rewarding experience for me, and learning how fast growing tech companies are run, and also seeing with my eyes how fast the impact can be, because like in 6 months we were already reaching almost 1 million people, and that kind of scale and growth, it is unimaginable from my previous business in agro-processing. So that was also my last job in Rwanda, which I quit in 2017 to move to the Netherlands. And in Europe, I started working in tech, but applied for agriculture sector. So what's in modern language they call agri-tech. So I was mostly running operations in West Africa, so East and West Africa for European tech startups. They were mentioned, some British ones, some Dutch ones, until most recently when I was approached by Norrsken to help actually set up the business in East Africa. And this is really one of the most exciting ventures that I have been involved in, not just because of the scale and but also the potential to change the entrepreneurship landscape. We're investing $20 million just in the property in the city center of Kigali to bring entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just entrepreneurs, but also the investors, service providers under one roof, even the policymakers under one roof, so that we can increase the speed of innovation and support to each other as, basically as we compete with time. So we don't compete with Nairobi, we don't want to compete with Lagos, but we want to compete with time, because we have an internal motto that says that time costs impact. So you do not want to postpone something that you should be doing today. But that's also really very important for all entrepreneurs who are out there. Mm-hmm. If you can do something, do it now. Do not dwell on planning, on strategizing, on thinking about how to call the name of your business. Just start doing and learn along the way and carry those lessons forward as you scale your operations. And as you already mentioned, what we do here, we provide this infrastructure in the city center of Kigali. It's actually the biggest hub in Africa. So we opened in phases. So the first phase, which we opened last year on December 2nd, houses 250 people. So this is actually where I'm sitting in that phase. And we are also adding new constructions to host 750 people. So by the end of this year, we'll have a capacity to host 1,000 people. And then we are starting a brand new construction, mostly to host corporates that want to work with the startups. Some of those big names like PwC, like internet service providers are already booking spaces there, because we want also startups not to feel, we are all in the business, but also even if you are a young startup, you should feel like you have the opportunity to talk to the CEO of a big company. Also, this big company is not need to know, like, let's make sure you don't get disrupted in the next 5 or 10 years. But also there's a way you can even transact and do business with more smaller startups, smaller up and coming startups. Wow. So that's in a nutshell is really about me, about the work that I'm working on, and the change we really hope to see in society here is to see entrepreneurs becoming role models in society. When I was growing up, Samuel Eto'o and Didier Drogba, these are big African footballers. They were my heroes. But we want to find ways to support local entrepreneurs with great ideas, to really support them so they can also become stars of society, because that will unlock capital from these pension funds, from local high net worth individuals, instead of just putting money in the real estate. Also put money in entrepreneurs, also younger people, when they see like the successful mathematician I know is a startup founder, not just like a high school teacher. No offense to them, I love teachers. But when we're talking about motivation, getting more young people to go into science, into engineering courses, they need to have those kind of role models. So basically, we really want to make sure that those entrepreneurs become role models in society. And when there are all those transactions happening, the African government can tax those transactions and then reinvest it back into like basic development programs like an infrastructure, which still also helps to accelerate the economic transformation of our economies, of our countries.
Wow. Well, excellent, Pascal. I mean, you shared so many great points. I loved when you indicated for entrepreneurs, instead of waiting for perfection to perfect a business name, perfect a plan, just do it now. And I think that's really, really sound advice to entrepreneurs, because so often that's the delay, right? Trying to plan everything perfectly and never start, and then it becomes 5-10 years and nothing ever started. But do it now, and I love that. I also love that you shared that you jumped into entrepreneurship as well, so that you can really relate and not just come from a theoretical perspective. So you jumped in, you understood, and you saw how technology can just transform lives in so many different ways. And it's just really inspirational that you took that route, and that you're here now in this place with Norrsken, where you're transforming again. You're transforming that ecosystem in Rwanda, in Africa, as that large hub, and really trying to position entrepreneurship so that it can, as you just mentioned, be role models, so people can see young persons can be inspired and motivated to find ways that they can find avenues out of whatever socioeconomic situation they may be in, for example, and really just jump into entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is one of those lifelines that can just really be pivotal for people and for economies. And so I thank you for all of those great points and for what you are doing in the world of entrepreneurship and technology, and seeing that we can use technology in such marvelous ways. Let me see if I have a few questions here from the audience. So let's see. There's a person called Andromeda who says he or she have been hearing so much about venture capitalists and would like to find out how safe it is for a young entrepreneur to deal with venture capitalists in terms of protecting the idea. You want to tackle that?
Yeah, it is a very good question. I also hear a lot these kind of questions as well, even here at Norrsken. But when it comes to an idea, really sharing your so if you compare the opportunities that come from sharing your idea and the opportunity costs of not sharing, it makes a lot of sense to share your idea, because the more people you talk to, the more opportunities will come your way to receive support, to receive help. If I can give you an example, when I was starting this idea of making potato chips, I still had a full-time job, but I said, like, maybe I can start like a very small venture at home, just to test everything. But yeah, because I did not have much to lose anyway, just started telling everyone about it. But then at some point, I told someone who worked with Dutch, the embassy of the Netherlands in Kigali, and he was like, yeah, actually, we're starting a program to support entrepreneurs like that. And you know what the result of that was? $100,000 in a grant to even start an entire factory, which is something I never imagined that it could get that kind of opportunities. But that tells you, like, really it's about sharing. A lot of opportunities come from there. And also, if you look at a startup or a business, it's really about the execution of your idea. Having an idea, so many people have ideas. Actually, if you walk in the street outside here and start asking, like, if you had money, like this time I'm just asking, like, talking about the population in general. If you had money, what kind of business could you start? So immediately, everyone will give you an idea. People have ideas, but in the end, it's about execution. But also, when you execute your idea, maybe you realize it was a dumb idea. It's also possible. Maybe you realize that there is even better opportunities along the way. Then you pivot. So when you hear some businesses they start with an idea, but along the way they decide to change things, those businesses tend to be also very successful. So it's also important to understand that venture capitalists, they want you to succeed, because if you don't, they also have to raise money. By the way, they're also businesses. They have to return that money to their what they call LPs, like limited partners, so people that gave them money to start the fund. So, which means like it's in their best interest for you to grow. So if they are in your business, so it's really not about stealing your business, but it's about helping your idea become a successful business. That's how they can get their return. A lot of young people also always say that, if they get shares in my business, then I'm no longer in control, then I lose ownership. That is really not a very strategic way of thinking, because it's always better to own 10% of $1 million business than owning 100% of nothing. So like really always try to think about, it is not about protecting my idea, because that idea, and like if you can think about it, it's most likely that someone somewhere else in the world have thought about it, or maybe can even execute faster than you. But it's really more about, can you execute your idea quicker than everybody? And what are the partnership you need to make sure that you can actually do it yourself, execute that idea? Because again, you will need a team, you will need maybe investors, maybe you will need people who help you with the go-to-market strategies or help you with distribution. So you cannot build a business alone. And all the support you can have, please pursue it. Of course, always looking at also protecting your interests, but always better to be with other people than being alone.
No, thank you. Great question, Andromeda, and great responses, Pascal. I think that's a concern that many persons share, and I think you helped to alleviate that. And I love the point about it's best to have 10% of $1 million than 100% of nothing, because that sort of flips the scene in the mind and the approach that we can take in terms of looking at opportunities to fund businesses. We have a question also from Brighton. How can innovation hubs in Africa like yours better connect with aspiring entrepreneurs in the diaspora who are keen to participate in Africa's growth, but may be geographically excluded?
Yeah, that's also an excellent question, because one of the, like if you look at Rwanda on the map, it's a very tiny country. But also, have you considered reason why maybe Stockholm has more unicorn startups like the Spotify's of this world or the Klarnas of this world, compared to, for example, Berlin, which is a bigger city in a bigger country. So it's really about the concentration of talent and innovation and capital. So in the case of Rwanda and our position in this Rwandan ecosystem, we want to attract also non-Rwandan entrepreneurs. Like, for example, as we speak now, I have two excellent entrepreneurs from the Democratic Republic of Congo who came all the way to see how can they move their HQ here, even if they maintain their field operations, in Goma or the Kinshasa, but they have the HQ here, maybe because it's easier to raise capital, maybe it's easier to be connected with all these other ecosystem players. So even if you are in the diaspora and you want to do something in Africa, we really would like to welcome you here, because you can register your business without even having to travel. You can use Norrsken as your address, and we can help you connect you with the right relevant stakeholders. And actually it also becomes easier if you have your own home country. Let's say you are originally from Nigeria or from Zimbabwe, then it becomes easier once you have your proof of concept proven in this smaller market where you need less resources to have a national impact, compared to if you were to start something in Ethiopia, then you need more capital to be able to have like a national relevancy. But if you can do that here, build your story, build your narrative, show that your innovation works, and then you can raise capital, hire, attractive talent. You will need to even go conquer even more bigger markets across the continent, and they have that continental impact we want to have like in Africa, as an African diaspora. So we're here to help.
Thank you so much for that response. And Brighton, I don't know if you want to follow up with anything and let me know and let us know if that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Pascal, for the response. It's quite informative. The reason why I'm asking that question is because I'm in the diaspora and I'm quite keen to participate in Africa's growth, but because of being in the diaspora, the logistics sort of become a bit difficult. So I've been keenly following following the progress of Norrsken and yourself, Pascal. Don't feel threatened. So I'm quite keen to find out how I can be part of the Norrsken family remotely, so to speak. Thank you.
Brighton, it's my pleasure to share our journey with everybody because I believe, there is no reason to hide what we are doing. And like I mentioned earlier, the more you share, the more you learn from feedback, also the more potential partners come along the way. So I'm not threatened by you following me. Please actually keep doing so. But back to your question, for your information, I'm also from the African diaspora, so I still officially live in the Netherlands. But the constraints we had, the physical constraints we had before COVID, actually, as entrepreneurs, it's always good to where there are challenges externally, always try to see where the opportunities lie along the way. So for me, if I talk about COVID, for example, one of the opportunities that's brought to me is that more people are open to remote working. The tools we use for remote collaboration, like the fact that we are talking on Zoom now. Zoom was there before COVID, but very few people knew about it. But now, because of COVID, people more started using Zoom, and they raised more capital, and they become more useful. And also the culture, the business culture also started changing because more people are more comfortable transacting, doing business with people that they have never met physically. So I really want to see the physical distance not necessarily as a reason why you shouldn't be involved in the African activities in Africa, but also if you want more practical ways, like what could be your next step, please feel free to reach out. You said we're already connected on social media, but also I'm happy to share my email here so that we can have more customized chats after this.
Excellent. Thank you, Pascal, for being available to continue the networking. We have a question from Ruva. Ruva, do you want to pose your question?
Wanted to ask what are your thoughts on hiring friends and family when, as an entrepreneur, when you're starting out? And how do you keep the difference, like at home, your relatives, and at work, you're their manager or their boss?
So yeah, that's a very good question. First, really, I would advise you to not think that you are anyone's boss. The customer is the boss. But when it comes to attracting talents, maybe family is easier because they want to trust you and you don't have a track record, or maybe they can accept to work with you at a lower salary compared to other people. It does not really matter whether people are your family or your friends. But what's important is that you're aligned in the change you want to see, the kind of business you want to build. If you are misaligned, especially with your initial employees, then you are likely to fail. So it does not matter whether they come from your home village or they come from a completely different continent. What matters is that you are aligned and they are all committed to working with you to execute your idea. And also really be open to receiving feedback from them. Be open to be challenged because that's how we all learn. But do not feel like you have to be, the boss, because that's really a recipe for disaster, especially when you're on that stage startup. You really have to make sure that everybody feels like they have ownership and they can contribute to making that. They are equally useful in contributing to the success of your business.
Is Ruvimba back on?
Yes, I am. Sorry, my network is a bit shaky.
Okay.
I was saying that there's quite a hype in capital markets investment. I'm talking about the stock exchange and also with cryptocurrency investment. So I feel that probably that hype is because markets in developed countries, in terms of business, they reach a certain plateau, and investment comes in the form of putting your money in the financial markets or in cryptocurrency and speculation. So my question is more towards how do we create a hype for business growth in Africa, that there's an opportunity for higher returns, there's an opportunity for participation even in the early stages of growth, and divert some of that funds more from speculation and more to the perspective of I'm a partner, I'm an investor in something that could actually work.
Yeah, that is a very good question, Rupimbo. And I already mentioned that one of the goals of Norrsken is to make entrepreneurs role models of society, like supporting them to become shining stars of society. And the way we do that is, first of all, like really even supporting each other. The fact that we are taking the time out of our busy schedules to be in this conversation, that's already an example that we are already supporting each other. And when we make purchase decisions, let's not also overlook our own solution, our own local solutions. So let's try to really buy from our own entrepreneurs, like things made from your friends. Do not feel like it's best to buy something that's made in the Silicon Valley when you have like an entrepreneur nearby who can also offer the same service. And again, it's also like we need to create a narrative, the stories ourselves. So we cannot always rely on international media to tell the stories of what's happening in our own ecosystems. But let's be open to sharing all the positive stories happening in our own environments, and that will also help attracting capital. That is really crucial. Like we tell the right stories of what's happening in our own ecosystems, and it will become our own best funds, biggest funds.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, great point. We have just time for two more. I see that Stanislaus. Did you want to ask your question?
Yes, I have a question, and I think I posted it here, and it's like raising the required capital for actualizing a business idea is all, or most of the time, is a challenge for many young African entrepreneurs. And so I just want like Pascal to share how can these be overcome, especially by young entrepreneurs in Africa.
Yeah, I think the issue is not only in Africa, raising capital, because also if you talk to startups, like for example, the startups we have in our ecosystem in Norrsken in Sweden, there is also like the issue of capital. Everybody wants to raise capital. But of course, those issues are even more exacerbated in our own ecosystems here in Africa. But I would always say, like, yes, capital is important, actually very important. But what can you do? Start with, what do I have now? Like, what do I know? Like, what can I do now? Because capital, like raising capital, takes time, and it will take time out of your business. But also, you don't know if you will ever get it if you haven't started anything. But the more you can start now, start generating income, like with whatever resources you have. Do not think about that great, huge idea you wanted to execute, but maybe divide it into smaller chunks and bring it back to what you can do now and now and now. The investors, when they look at your business, the first thing they look at is structure. Like, are you actually doing anything, or you're waiting? Because that's already a bad sign if you cannot do anything because you're waiting for capital to show up one day. But just focus on execution and leveraging whatever resources you have, whether it's just you are also resourcing yourself, or maybe talking to your friends or family, or maybe if you're in university, using the university resources, going into hubs to accelerators, like in the ones we have here at Norrsken, and then capital will follow.